Hey everybody, we are live here at Ishook Comics, and we're loving it as we're growing and growing. We're getting connected with the best players in the industry.
That's right.
So today we have with us Mr. Mike Barron and our great Al Nickerson. We're gonna learn a lot about them. I'm coming in not knowing nothing about them. Ben knows them all. So we are here to start and learn. So Ben, start it. Who do we introduce first, and where do we start?
Okay, well, we can go at both of these. Al,
Ben is eating, by the way.
yeah.
With much respect,
I'm eating Zaxby's. So Al has worked for DC. He's worked for Nickelodeon. He's worked for Archie Comics. Am I leaving anything out, Al?
Marvel, MTV Animation, and Warp Graphics.
Mike has worked for Marvel, DC, Dark Horse, Rippaverse. What am I missing? I mean, there's like a bunch of comic labels. What am I missing?
Malibu, Valiant. But for the last 20 years, I've been self-publishing, and I think I'm doing the best work of my career because as we get older, we should get better, and I'm excited about it.
Wow.
So they both have an extensive history in comics and everything. They both have really solid books. I recently just I had read Bronze. Is it Bronze Star? Is that
Yes.
right? I'd read Bronze Star. That was my first Mike Barron book that I read because I'm a Western guy anyway. So it's like, well, let me go ahead because there's a high probability that I'm gonna like it. It was a supernatural Western, really good. I don't know how much detail I'm allowed to give in it, but there's a monster.
Okay, feel free to say
Okay,
anything you like.
Remember, he's wearing the spoiler alert hat. Everyone who's watching,
there's a werewolf in it. That's what you and it is a good Western. It's really good. I like the aesthetic. I like the storytelling of it. Most recently, I thought, well, since we've got him on the show, I've got to read Nexus because I know that it's his baby, and so I'm like, this is what he cares about. This is his baby. And I thought, I wonder if I'm gonna like this or not. I was blown away. It's like not just good, but like ridiculously good. I read The Origin, and then I read the next Nexus 1 and 2, which is about 3 different sisters that want to kill him for murdering their dad. And what I like is this didn't pull it out of the air, but it's part of.
All right, Ben, hold off on the stories. Hold off on the story. We want to read it. We want to entice people to read it, man.
Benny.
Oh, he's enticing.
There's like an omnibus. How many Nexus comics have there been overall? The different series?
Probably about 120.
Oh, yeah. Okay. But I want to start reading it now, and I don't want to lose.
Well, you can't read it now.
They've got omnibus on Amazon. And you've got some on sale on your website.
Yeah, we have 2 books that I've done recently. One is Nefarious with the great Richard Bach, who did Sherlock Holmes, and the other is Scourge with Kelsey Shannon, and it's just brilliant. Everybody who's seen it says this guy was born to draw Nexus.
Now, Al, I was talking to him, and he knows all about Nexus. He said that he got turned on to him in college. Al, tell him about what your favorite Nexus comic was.
Well, yeah, when I started college, I started reading a lot of independent work, including Nexus and Cerebus and Will Eisner's The Spirit and stuff like that. And Nexus was great, and I've always enjoyed reading the Nexus comics. And Steve Rude's artwork is great, and the stories are great, and I love the character. But yeah, if I have to pick any one particular story, I think I shared this with Ben and Mike, but the Nexus Meets Madman one-shot comic book. It was so much fun. It was like, it's beautifully drawn. It was a great story, and it was a whole lot of fun. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Will.
You're welcome.
Now I'm just curious about this, and then I'm going to.
Let me ask a question, Ben. Let me ask a question. Let me ask a question. All right, because it's so I want to first ask Mr. Barron. All right, so what brought you in to comics, and where does the passion come from? And I'm going to ask the same question to Mr. Nickerson, right? What brought you into comics, and where did this passion come from? Because listen, I grew up with comics also, obviously Marvel, DC. Who's not a fan, right? Like, I mean, come on, right? Well, I don't know. I'm not going to say. I mean, maybe the more you into it, you decide different, right? But That's my question out there. Let's get that.
Uncle Scrooge brought me into comics, and I've always been a writer ever since I was a little kid. And I bought a John D. MacDonald paperback in a cigar store, and I'm standing there on the street looking at this book in my hand, and I had revelation. I said, this guy's not writing for his health. He's doing it for a living, and that's what I want to do. And so the bug was the bug bit. And I've been writing ever since. I started writing professionally right out of college. My first job out of college was smoking marijuana for the government. I moved to Boston because I heard there were a bunch
of... What does that mean?
Well, I'll tell you. There's alternative news weeklies there, and I respond to an ad in the back of the Boston Phoenix looking for volunteers to live on a hospital ward for months, smoke dope every day, and take a battery of tests. It was just like college. So I did that. And when I got out, I wrote it up and I sold it to the Boston Phoenix. And a couple of months later, they hired me as their music editor. I've been writing about music ever since, too. I love music. Wow. I broke into comics in 1981 when I created Nexus with Steve Rude. We were in the right place at the right time. Capital City Distribution, the second largest distributor in the world, wanted to publish their own book, and they said they wanted a costume superhero. So I brainstormed Nexus, and I wrote the first 12 pages as I wrote comics for 20 years, which was by drawing each page by hand. Each page, when I say drawing it, I mean drawing it, completely illustrating every panel. I'm not a good artist, but I'm good enough that people can tell at a glance what I'm drawing. And then I added the word balloons, the captions, and whatever directions it needed, and looked at the next panel. And I thought, what happens next? What is the next logical development in this story that would intrigue the reader? And for anybody who wants to create comics, I recommend trying this. Whether you can draw or not, you can use stick figures. It's an invaluable lesson because it teaches you so many things. It teaches you how much weight the page can bear. And most importantly, it teaches you to think about what happens next, which is the most important question in fiction, because if the reader doesn't care, he's not going to turn the page. So I proceeded like an inchworm from panel to panel, always thinking, what happens next? What's the logical development? And the logical development is not always obvious because there are twists and turns in every narrative. And when I completed the 12 pages, I gave them to the dude. He penciled, inked, and lettered them, and we showed them to the boys, and they said, all right, now we need 20 more pages, and we were off and running.
Wow. What about you, Mr. Nickerson? That. By the way, I don't know, how can you beat that? I mean, can you beat that? I hope you can. Smoking marijuana for the government when it took years for them to get it legal in New York. Go ahead.
Yeah, I don't use recreational drugs, but when I was younger, my parents were very supportive of me reading comics and drawing, and they encouraged that. And I think one of the earlier comics I have ever read when I was a kid was an issue of Detective Comics, and there was a backup story in there by Walt Simonson and Archie Goodwin featuring Manhunter.
Yes.
And I thought it was so good. And the last issue of that, or the last chapter of Manhunter's story, was like I think the full issue of Detective Comics. And it was beautifully drawn, and Walter did a great job. And Batman was cool. He had these long ears and this cape that was like flowing like 30 feet long, and it was like beautiful. So that had a huge impact on me. But yeah, I mean, I kept writing and drawing, and my parents were supportive, and I had some great classes in middle school and high school. And when I started reading John Byrne's run on Uncanny X-Men and Terry Austin's inks, I realized I wanted to be an inker. Then after high school, I went to the School of Visual Arts, and I had some really great teachers there, like Will Eisner and Harvey Kurtzman and Gene Colan. And they really helped me in regards to creating comics and working out my craft. Yeah, and after college, I started working for Warp Graphics and Marvel and DC and Archie. And yeah, it's been a lot of fun. And it's great. It's a wonderful art form.
Wow.
Benny?
I'll give it to Ben. Go ahead, Ben.
Okay. I was building to something, my friend.
All right.
So I want to hit Mike first, and I want to go to Al, and Al's going to totally know where I'm going with this. So when you look at Nexus and you look at this character, and it's a neat thing about him, you get the alien, the Merc, and he has some kind of morality and judgment, and he wants to take out wicked people. I think it's weird, like nowadays, I'm going to point to the hat because, so Benny, just, I don't even say a word about it. The last episode of Superman and Lois just happened, and Lois was the one that performed a wedding. They didn't even have a minister doing it. It's weird because they don't have like the religious beliefs or whatever of anybody anymore. I think they had that way more with Daredevil or whatever back in the day. How does any of that impact Nexus and that comic, Mike?
You just killed
Nexus
Lois
is a very conservative storyline. I've written about this before. In fact, I have a whole column about it. But if you read Nexus, you'll learn that he's against authoritarianism. He's against tribalism. That's probably the biggest hang-up. Nexus sees people as individuals. And if we all saw people as individuals instead of white oppressors or needy invaders or something, the world would be better off. In fact, the United States is the success that it is because it was the first country in history to put the primacy of the individual before the government. And that theme runs through Nexus. There's also the theme of retribution, and that gets a little fuzzy around the edges. I'm writing a story now where Nexus regrets some of the executions he carried out because the people that he killed, when he killed them, they were not the same people they were when they had committed their crimes. But anybody who reads Nexus understands that it has a conservative point of view. It's not heavy-handed. It doesn't relate to local politics or current politics. So it's not risible. It's just part of the story. I have to point out that my first goal in any of this is to entertain, and I never lose sight of that fact. The story must be entertaining first and foremost. And whatever point of view that enters into the story happens to do with my third rules. Number one, my job is to entertain. Number two, show, don't tell. Number three, be unique. Well, we're all individual human beings, and we necessarily bring our own experience to whatever it is that we write. And my experience has been that conservatism works. It produces the greatest amount of wealth. And I think that the United States is proof of that. And it's the reason that so many people are dying to get here is because for a long time, the primacy of the individual to innovate, to create companies, to create wealth. That's where wealth comes from. It comes from the fact that if I build a better widget, I can get rich. Now, there are a lot of people out there that are criminals and abuse the system and scammers, especially now that we have the internet. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about decent citizens, decent human beings who have respect for others and don't intend to cut corners or break laws. But today, and this is another theme of my work, is that there's so many laws enacted by the tapeworm class, and that's what I call people who go into politics, that it's impossible not to break a law. Virtually every minute of the day, you're breaking some law so that the tapeworm class can come to your house at dawn while CNN films it and drag you out in chains for some imagined transgression and then throw you into prison. And that's how they maintain their power. Very slowly, the United States is turning into a totalitarian nightmare. But now that's stopped. It's come to a screeching halt because they weren't able to control the election like they have in the past, and the people have spoken. So now we've got a second chance, and we can all breathe a sigh of relief, but we all have to work hard to maintain the primacy of the individual and shrink the size of government. Sorry for the lecture.
No, it's all good, all good, all good. Amen, amen.
so Al, you created this character, Rebecca Stern. She gets the Sword of Eden, and specifically, she's Jewish. Her faith is important to her. All the biblical stuff that you have, the Garden of Eden and the demonic and the angelic and so forth. Talk to us about how that plays out in comics and how you think that it impacts things.
Well, first of all, I want to say that I totally agree with everything that Mike Barron just said. And you don't often see comics that are like that nowadays. You have a lot of crazy woke content in film and comics and television, and it's quite terrible. As far as the Sword of Eden goes, yeah, it's an action adventure graphic novel series, and the first 2 volumes are out and on sale. And there's a lot of strong Christian themes in the books. And yeah, it's heroes are heroes and villains are villains. And the heroes are fighting various different demons and monsters and such. And yeah, the first storyline, the heroes search for the Sword of Eden, and they want to get the sword because they realize it's a very powerful weapon. And the demons don't want the heroes to find the sword because they believe that if there's any more evidence of God, then that's a bad thing for demons and their cause. So yeah, Rebecca Stern, I had to create a character where the readers followed the story, and she begins her first day as a superhero. And yeah, she's Jewish, and she believes that she has an eye for an eye mentality of things, and she thinks if she's beating up villains and fighting evil, then she's doing God's will. And she ends up being part of this superhero family, and they go on other adventures. Yeah, and it's great. Yeah, it has a lot of very strong Christian themes in the book, and I want to give back to God because God has blessed my life, and I want to render back unto Him all the blessings He's poured out in my life. And I wanted to create content that Christians can read and conservatives can read, where they're not feeling that they're compromising their principles. And that's what you have with the Sword of Eden graphic novel series.
Now, you've sold quite a few of those at some Christian bookstores and all too, haven't you?
Yeah, see, that's the thing now. So we can complain about Marvel and DC and how they've really destroyed the direct market and how it's really hurting comic book stores. But yeah, if you're self-publishing, you should sell directly to readers and sell directly to bookstores. So yeah, so I'm doing that, and I'm selling directly to comic book stores and Christian bookstores and mainstream secular bookstores as well, because you have to do that if you want to survive self-publishing. But there are a lot more opportunities now to do that. So you have to read your audience through various different means, and it's a great opportunity for people who want to create their own content and to self-publish. And yeah, so I got to do all that, and it's wonderful. And you also have to have an interest in the business side of things and have an interest in self-publishing. So it's fun. It's great.
Do you do that through Diamond or some other thing, or is that you to the comic stores?
Right. So, well, both. So the Sword of Eden Volume 1 went through Diamond, and I've sold the first graphic novel to comic book stores as well. The problem with Volume 2 is I didn't have a UPC code, barcode on the back of Volume 2. So Diamond has a policy of not distributing books that don't have a barcode. So, but I am selling directly to stores, and that's great. The less amount of people that you have to have in your way to reach your audience is a good thing. So yeah, selling directly to readers and stores, I think that's great. And it works out well for self-publishers if they're working directly with stores, because it's more money in our pocket.
Benny?
Yeah, so interesting that you say about the Sword of Eden. Do you know in Judaism there is actually a sword from Eden? Is that where it comes from?
Yeah, so Genesis chapter 2. Is it chapter 2 or chapter 3? So God cast Adam and Eve out of the garden, and God set up cherubim to keep man out of the Garden of Eden, and they had a sword, and that is the sword.
Right, but it doesn't say swords in the Torah, right? It doesn't say it there.
I think it says sword, doesn't it? I know it's well,
I don't want to go biblical, but I'm referring to a different sword. There's actually a sword that Adam was given in the Garden of Eden.
And he's talking about the cherub with the fiery sword to keep him out.
Right. That's not in the right. So I was referring to a different sword. There's a sword that we call Charbad de Moshe, right?
He's a rabbi, by the way.
Yeah, I forgot to write rabbi. Yeah. so there's a sword called Charbad de Moshe, which is the sword of Moses, which was given to him by the angels from Eden, which was owned by originally Adam. It's known in Kabbalistic teachings. It's Charbad de Moshe. So I figured that's where you got the Sword of Eden, but now you're saying I didn't realize it was from the cherubim, the kiruvim that we say in Hebrew. But yeah, side point. I don't know. I thought that's what it was.
Yeah. So yeah, it's the second or third chapter of Genesis.
Gotcha. So now we know the source, guys, where the sword came from in Genesis. I just wanted to make sure. I thought it was that one. Whatever, it doesn't matter. I was just trying to get the source of where it was and where the inspiration came from. Don't get upset. I hope you're not upset.
I'm not upset at all.
All right, awesome.
So both of y'all have a lot of things going on and everything. Mike, I think your latest project is the Sherlock Holmes book. You're currently getting it crowdfunded. Captain Nemo, I believe, is in it as well. Yes. Benny, can you play that trailer before we start talking?
Give me a sec.
Build this thing up.
Yeah, we're gonna slowly, guys, one step at a time.
I wore my Sherlock hat, by the way, the other day to work. It was freezing cold. It's an English fox hunting hat, is what that is.
I have a deer stalker.
Okay, so here is the Sherlock Holmes link. 1 second. Let's check this out. Here we go. Press play. Can you hear it?
When a series of shipping disasters points to a mysterious sea monster, Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Watson leave the comfort of Baker Street and board a freighter where they encounter unexpected betrayal and come face to face with the enigmatic Captain Nemo and his submarine, the Nautilus. As they delve deeper into the case, they uncover a conspiracy involving a Russian Tsar with an airship that rains destruction on unsuspecting cities. With time running out and the world on the brink of war, the heroes must use all their skills and resources to stop a massive conspiracy and prevent global conflict. From Eisner-winning writer Mike Barron and illustrator Richard Bonk, dive into the depths of adventure and unravel the mysteries of the sea with the world's greatest detective in Leviathan. Order now at baroncomics.com.
Wow.
Being forced to see ads?
Wow, we're not going to play that ad, but that was awesome. That was nice. There you go, Ben. We got to do something like this, Ben. We got
that's some stuff. Who did you say produced that made that video, Mike?
Oh, I got him out. I got him out. Sorry. My fault.
There he is. Mike,
my fault.
You're trying to make this a little more dramatic than it otherwise would be. Mike, who was it that made that video that you said that you were working with? That's real professional.
Chris Brawley. He's the guy behind Bleeding Fool. He's a professional videographer. He lives in Chattanooga.
Yeah, I like that guy.
Yeah, he's a nice guy.
He is a nice guy, yeah.
Interesting. So what's the premise of the... Go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, no, I was just wanted to let Mike know it is a great trailer, so that looks awesome.
Thank you, guys. We're very proud of the trailers. Every trailer he does is brilliant. You know, if you're looking for entertainment, just go to my page, baroncomics.com, and look at the trailers for every book we've offered. They're just pure entertainment.
Wow. No, you made the book, you made the comic like literally come to life like that. I mean,
Chris did.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's genius right there.
He auditioned 5 different voice actors.
Wow. If you ever need a voice actor, Daniel Baldwin is available. I am also. I got pretty good voice, right? Just kidding.
So I like that really has like a steampunk kind of theme with the airship. I'm big on like the whole airship thing and everything. I think that's really keen, and you kind of get that with the Nautilus too, because it's a thing that's ahead of its time that Captain Nemo has. So I like that. That cane move that he did also had that sort of thing. I like the Avengers, but when I say the Avengers, I'm not talking about like Marvels. I'm talking about the black and white show with the guy that wears the derby and has the cane and Miss Kitty. Yeah, that I was like, that's kind of like that. I like that a lot. Tell us about a little more about the premise of the book and your thoughts behind it.
Well, I'd always want to do a Sherlock Holmes story. I'd been a Sherlock Holmes fan my whole life, and then one day it just popped into my head, what would happen if he met Captain Nemo? What would they do together? What would be their purpose? And the whole thing kind of fell into place from there. It's 72 pages long, and there are some people in there that I can't mention because I want them to come as a surprise. And believe me, when the reader comes to them, their head will explode in delight when they see who's in this story. But it's not spaced out. You know, I'm one of those guys that I want everything in the story to advance the story, so I don't tread water. And you see that in a lot of comics. You see them treading water. I'll read a comic and and you'll see a full page spread for a talking head. Nobody wants to see that. You should save your full page spread for an event. One of the best events is discovering a lost civilization in the jungle. That's always worth a full page spread. Explosions aren't. If you've seen one explosion, you've seen them all. And there's some explosions in this too. We give them space. We don't squeeze them in. But I think a third of a page is enough. And then I look at my friend Chuck Dixon, and his book is filled with double page spreads, and I'm trying to learn how to do that. But I have to justify that double page spread with a lot of action, which I can do. But it's just I don't cram the action in. I have a 5-page limit for most pages, and then frequently I'll go to 2 or 3 pages when the action requires. Occasionally I'll go to 6 pages. When I started reading comics, I don't know if anybody noticed or remembers this, but Marvel was 9 panels per page, and then they went to 8 panels per page, and that was pretty rigid dogma for many years. Of course, they'd open it up. Kirby would open it up when he had to do a big action scene, but they did divide the page a lot. A comic story has a pulse and a rhythm all its own, like a good pop song. And that means that sometimes you do the tonic, and that's where you have characters talking. And then you come to the hook, and maybe that's where a spaceship crashes it through the roof. And then you come to the resolution, which is where all the good guys get together and fight the spaceship or something. And that demands that you open up your scenery. So I try to maintain that throughout the story, because a story is a dynamic narrative with a beginning, a middle, and an end. And by dynamic, I mean the story is constantly in flux. If it were static, if the hero was happy and had everything he wanted in life and everything was perfect, there would be no story. It's adversity that sets the hero on his path. First he's up, first he's down. So you have a series of tensions throughout the story, which you could see in any good network TV show. You'll notice that they often end the segment before the commercial on a little cliffhanger, which is what a good novelist does with each chapter. He plants the hook for the next chapter. You have to know how to do that. And I know how to do that. And so that's how the story unfolds, event after event, with action, and then relaxation, and then intrigue, and you just keep going at it. You mix everything that's human into it, romance, action, which some people say is other people sex and violence, but we call it romance and action.
And you totally know how to do that, man, with all the pacing and everything. I mean, again, you're a great writer, and I think that people make their mind up pretty quick. I don't know if everybody's like me on something, and it doesn't necessarily mean that somebody like can't write, because, for example, like Tom Clancy sells a lot of books, but he's not my style.
I know.
And I prefer like talking about the wind rustling through the trees and prose, rather than like the tech gun junkie talk that he talks. It's almost like if you're talking like heavy car mechanics, and you're just not like with that, and you just don't get it or whatnot. There have been certain different writers in comics, I don't know that I'll drop names because I'm talking negative talk, that I'll hear their name and I'll think, oh, I've heard of them before, don't really know a lot about them, but you'll pick it up, and if it just doesn't like do it for you, you think, are they having an off time, or are they not as good as I thought maybe they would be? And then you kind of slowly walk away, and you think every time you see that person's name on a book, it's like the last one was so meh. And Mike, you've left a good impression on me. You make me want to read more Mike Barron stuff, and I mean that's good. That's good writing. I won't say who the other person is, but all of y'all would know him. He's a big deal. It was a DC book, and I saw a book and I thought, hey, I might like it. I picked it up and I thought, I'm not going to read that guy again. And again, this is somebody that's been on a lot of book things, and I thought maybe they were off, maybe not. We could talk about it privately. I don't want to say their name. But yeah, Al, man, I had read your Sword of Eden a while ago. I need to get the next one. The sequel is out now. It looks like you've got some ninja stuff going on in the sequel. Is that accurate?
That is very true. So there's 2 versions of Volume 2. So Volume 2 is called The Sword of Eden Shinobi. So there's a standard cover, and that's $19.99, and then the Trump variant cover, which is $29.99. Yeah, so Shinobi is the original name used for ninja. Shinobi actually means nin in the word ninja. So our heroes get together and they want to bring down the Scarred Fist Ninja Clan. So they travel to Japan and they fight ninja in this old Japanese cemetery, which is a lot of fun. So yeah, so there's a lot of ninja and fighting, and yeah, so that's a lot of fun. It's interesting because the whole battle takes place in a Japanese cemetery. So I had to create grave markers, headstones with Japanese names on it. So I was able to find a website where you can type in an English name and it'll give you the translation in Japanese. So I put all these names on all the different headstones. But unless you read Japanese, you probably can't figure out.
We have somebody at Ishook.
Yeah, we do.
But I was put like, people like some characters in comics, I put their names on, like Jason Todd and Elektra and Gwen Stacy and people that I actually know. And then there's a lady at my church, and she's from Japan, and she was very helpful with her input and her advice on things. So yeah, it's great. It's all the stuff I love in comics. So,
that's excellent. And I like that you have Nosferatu in one of them too. I'm looking forward to that movie. Yeah. So I like Dracula, and again, and it's like a weird thing now because nowadays it's like, hey, let's have sympathy for the devil, feel bad for the villain. Dracula means son of the devil. He's a legit bad guy. He's legitimately evil. The book totally has like religious connotation because they want to save his soul before they kill the monster and talk about like the hope in his eyes before he died. So it's a neat novel. I like old books.
Well, I got really tired of the fact that in fiction, vampires are usually portrayed as very sympathetic. You have stuff like Twilight and the Vampire Diaries and that kind of stuff, which I really don't like. So vampires are monsters and they make for great villains. So yeah, in this volume 1, the first graphic novel, I had to show that the characters progressed a bit. So I had to come up with a quick fighting adventure. So I decided to use Count Orlok. So the characters meet and they battle Count Orlok in that story. It actually ended up being more pages than I thought. So it ended up being like 11 pages. But yeah, but my point really was that vampires are monsters. They're evil. They should be used as villains. And that's how we should portray them in works of fiction. But you don't see it. Yeah, all the Vampire Diaries and all that kind of, and Twilight, that's just crazy stuff. As far as the new Nosferatu that's coming out, it looks a little creepy for me. I had some interest in it, but I watched a couple of trailers and it seems kind of creepy. So I don't know if it's really.
Did you watch The Last Voyage of the Demeter?
I did. I think it's fine. It's 1 or 2 chapters from the original Dracula novel, and they expanded on it. I thought that was fine. Yeah, I think that was okay. But this new Count Orlok Nosferatu remake, yeah, it looks a little racy. So I don't know if I would go and see that or not. But I like the original, and Max Schreck as Count Orlok in the original film. That still holds up.
I just read a novel called The Holmes Dracula File.
How was it?
Sherlock
It's very good. It's written by Fred Soberhagen. His take on Dracula is drastically different than what you're talking about. He makes Dracula a sympathetic character, and then he drags Holmes into the supernatural world and posits things in those novels that I personally don't buy, but I admire his skill in weaving it together. It's a very good novel. It's highly entertaining. Ben, that you mentioned about writing about the wind through the leaves when you're writing. And whenever I have a character enter a new scene in one of my novels, I always ask myself, what does he see? What does he hear? What does he smell? What does he feel? Because that's necessary, I think, to building a credible narrative. It makes the world seem real. You can go overboard on that stuff, and of course, it's how you say it. It's not what you say; it's the way that you say it. But that kind of stuff is important in a certain type of writing, most writing.
Is Is Florida Man, is he a Seminoles or a Gators or a Hurricanes fan, or what's his deal? I know that you've got a Florida Man series. He fights Hogzilla. Those are horrible, Benny. I don't know if you know about it, but like 1,000-pound like warthog from the woods. It's a real thing, particularly in the South. Does he have a sports team that he is a fan of?
Well, yeah, he's a fan of the Dolphins, which is apparent in the first novel. He's a big sports fan, but Gary really, he just wants to get rich. He's always looking for his next get-rich-quick scheme. And those stories, of course, a lot of them are ripped right from the headlines. Nothing sleazy. Gary's saving grace is he's just a redneck living in a trailer down by the swamp. He likes to get high. He likes to get stoned. He's been in and out of trouble his whole life with minor legal hassles, but he's got a heart of gold, and he give you the shirt off his back. And that's the key to making the novel so popular. I mean, he's in one adventure after another, one crazy adventure. The craziest things I can imagine is what I put him up to, because it's that juxtaposition which is so funny. For want of a better term, I call it the juxtaposition of the sacred and the profane. And that means that you take something that's vulgar and low down, and you present it as if it's elegant and high up, and it can be very funny.
I'm a big fan of humor comics. You know, Benny was asking y'all what made you love comics, and with me, like Mad Magazine was huge for me as a kid. I like it. Spy versus Spy is still one of my favorites, and all that. Al, man, so you used to work for Archie comics. You did some Sabrina and everything. Now they've got like Archie horror. They've got like racy political. Riverdale Archie stuff. I know that I shared with you back in 1973 when I forget the guy's name, Golston or something like that, where he licensed out the Archie characters to Spire Christian Comics, and they made 19 like churchy, Christian comics with the Archie characters and all that, which seems like a good fit because they're wholesome characters anyway. They chew bubble gum and go to the malt shop. It's like Leave It to Beaver. What do you think about like humor and like, I don't even know, I guess pure kind of stuff, Bazooka Joe and what have you. What do you think about that all today, and where has that went? And do you think that there's a place for it more so in today's market? I know that a lot of people want to get their kids into comics and want kid-friendly comics, and there's not a lot of good options. But if Archie was what it used to be, it would have been a good option, wouldn't it?
Yes. Archie Comics is not what it used to be, especially when they really started changing, because they kind of got rid of the whole Dan DeCarlo kind of art style. They use it sometimes, but then they went and branched off and created content that was geared towards adults. I think we do need more comics focused really on children as well, because we're all going to die off someday, and it would be kind of nice if people kept reading comics. So yeah, I think there should be comics and graphic novels for everybody, for children and adults, and geared towards those particular audiences. And yeah, I don't see a whole lot of new content coming out for really young readers, but we need that. But I also think that even in the mainstream comic book publishing world, we should have more fun action adventure books that really don't indoctrinate people in a certain woke agenda. And I think heroes should be heroes and villains should be villains. And I think we need more of more comics and graphic novels that are like that. And it's kind of a shame, because even like when I was growing up, like Marvel had like the Spidey comic book, was geared towards a younger audience. When I was working at Marvel, I worked on a Spider-Man book that was geared towards a younger audience. But we need some more comics for kids.
Let me ask you a question. Do you think the dynamics of younger individuals, Gen X, Gen Z, well, actually Gen Z specifically, are there readers? I mean, do they like reading comics? What's your? I mean, you guys sell comics, right? What is your responses or your feedback that you get from your readers?
Well, I personally have gotten a lot of great feedback from my readers, but I also taught at a college for 10 years. So all my students were like, 19, 20 years old. And I found that they liked manga. So they read a lot of manga. They liked anime. And they tend to watch and read content which didn't really cost them a lot of money. So they weren't reading comic strips. They really weren't reading Marvel and DC books. But whatever that was free and available, I mean, because we're talking about college students who, you know, don't have a whole lot of money, that's kind of where they went to. But yeah, it's amazing. Like I'm not a big manga fan, but it is amazing the impact that younger audience are having in regards to reading manga. They love that stuff. And
so what's the difference between a manga and a comic? What would be the difference?
Well,
essentially, they're the same thing. No, they are, let's say, again, pictorial images,
correct,
depicting scenes, right? Right. Like, what's the difference? Why should manga? Maybe it's the storylines are different. They have like really weird storylines. So.
Yeah, so the content is different from American.
Don't get me wrong, I like manga too. I mean, I'm just saying, I like comics and manga and anime in general.
Manga better?
Yeah, why is manga more like you're seeing right now more manga? Like for example, One Piece. We said last time in the last podcast, right? One Piece, and then you have Bleach, and then you have a few others that are being created by Netflix, and they're having good success stories.
Mm-hmm.
I think Dragon Ball Z made a movie which really failed. That movie, it didn't really
horrible, I hear.
Yeah,
I
saw
made a movie that was bad. It was
Avatar made the series, which was good. The movie wasn't so great.
Yeah.
The series, no, not Nickelodeon series. Netflix made an Avatar series, which was very successful. They signed 2 more seasons, right? So, but we don't see comics being made into movies or series as much as manga and anime.
Yeah, I was gonna be like.
No, I want to say, like, and then this for also Mr. Marin. Like, what do you guys think? And,
yeah, I'd like to hear
whoever think.
Well, a number of us have been blacklisted, and there's no chance of Hollywood ever adapting any of our works. But now there are other avenues. For instance, I know a producer who's taken out an option on Biker, and he's very excited about another one of my properties. And I'm creating some other properties which I think will have legs. But if they do find legs, it's not going to be through the Hollywood system. You know, I have recently written a novel. It's called Seer. And it's about a young man who can read minds when he's touching you, and how he goes to Hollywood to expose pedophiles. And I talked to a few of my friends who work in Hollywood, and they all said no Hollywood producer would ever touch this, and no regular publisher will touch this because their ties to Hollywood are too great. But if you publish it yourself, it could be very big, and so I'm going to do that.
That's awesome.
Wow. You need. I can support in anything you want. I mean,
I was gonna be like,
I'm ready.
Hollywood.
I'm ready to help in that movie. That's a series right there.
Yeah.
We don't have to go to Hollywood.
I'm very proud of the novel. It's
by the way, you can go to.
How I got it written.
There's other studios you can go to. You can go to Mark Wahlberg's studio.
We'll see.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah.
I like that premise of that story.
I really loved, just on TV. First up, I thought that Daredevil was one of the better superhero like live action series.
Where on Netflix?
Netflix made it back when.
Yeah, they say they want to bring it back.
I don't know how that's going to be. But
no, they're going to bring it back on Disney.
I know they're supposed to bring back Born Again. It'll involve writers and all that. The actors did great. I don't know. Anyway, in season 2, I loved how they brought the Punisher in. It felt like the Punisher should feel. Mike, you've written some Punisher. There's a lot of people that don't like that character, but I think money. I bought the Horseman comic that Rippaverse had. I enjoyed it, that Chuck Dixon wrote. And the selling point of that is this is like a Punisher character. This is like a Death Wish character. He doesn't really leave a lot of bad guys alive. They're terrible. Like not just jaywalkers, but legitimately terrible, selling drugs to kids, gunning people down, and he shoots them dead. He's military. Talk to us about your experience with the Punisher and how you feel about the character and that.
Well, I'm disgusted with what Marvel has done with the Punisher. That's why I created Private American. Private American is on my store at baroncomics.com. It's what the Punisher should be doing today and would be doing if I wrote him. What is that? He's down at the southern border, intercepting the flow of human traffickers, drug smugglers, and terrorists.
He's forcing me to buy this book. I want you all to hear this. He is forcing me. Go ahead.
And, the moment I announced that, The hate campaign from the left landed like a thermonuclear bomb. The Daily Kos, which is a far left hate site, wrote an article headlined Punisher creator Mike Baron releases another racist AF comic book. Well, first of all, I didn't create the Punisher, Jerry Conway did. Secondly, the purple-haired woman who wrote this had never read anything that I've written. She still hasn't. She hadn't read Private American because it hadn't been released yet. She just looked at the hook, which is he's on the southern border, and that's all she needed to know to go into her hate-filled rant trying to cancel me.
Yeah, that's a mistake. In any intelligent person should not make any write-up or journalistic article, if you call it journalistic.
She's not
Right?
journalistic.
Yeah, I mean, unless you have to read the comic first. Like it's like a food critic criticizing a restaurant and has not eaten one meal or one taste of the chef or of the restaurant's production.
Well, I would recommend you actually taking a look at the article. Here, I'll show you the headline. I'll put it in your Twitter feed, Ben.
Okay. Benny, what you got to do is you got to make a Star Wars series, but have people in it who have never, ever watched Star Wars.
No, just come up with a new legend, you know. Well, I can't say they've destroyed Star Wars. I haven't. I saw a couple of the more recent movies. I didn't like them, but you know, there's always new stuff coming out. The way Hollywood feeds like a vampire on everything they've done before, recycling, remaking over and over again, as if there are no new ideas. It's shocking.
Well, but I don't think that's because there's no new ideas. I think they're afraid to bank on new ideas. It just makes it much easier to bank on a already developed project that already makes money and already has a fan base.
Well,
now start creating a new fan base, right? Like we're trying to do this, me and Ben, with our comic, right? Super Black, and it's going to take time till people like that new fan base, and we were able to like our goal is right now to create our own comic, but then license other comic characters, right, to join our comic as well, so we can do like a kind of collaborative kind of thing. But Disney is not going to do a cross collaboration with anybody, right? These big companies are not going to do that. So there's going to be a fail financially. So they're better off sticking on what they have already. And just like you said, remake is an easy win in money. I mean, but now they're actually getting hit.
They're losing their shirts.
Well, now it's not working because they're putting a lot of, like you said, like we said in the beginning, a lot of the woke issues or the woke ideas in there. Like they're getting away from the actual characters and the personalities that people
know your audience. That's what.
Yeah,
it is.
Know your audience.
Know your audience. It's
they're
honoring the story. Snow White was what Walt Disney banked on. He banked everything, and people said he was nuts. He banked on it. Charlie Chaplin and everybody had tears in their eyes over the Snow White movie when it came out, saying how brilliant of a cartoon it was. You know, it moved better than, you know, their legs weren't spinning in circles. It was a fantastic. It's a brilliant cartoon. You know, I loved it. I loved it as a kid. I love it now. There's a lot of Disney stuff that I love. My favorite movie that I thought was Disney as a kid is real dark, but it was a defected Disney artist. It was The Secret of Nim. But I mean, there's a lot of old Disney movies that I really liked. You know, they were patriotic and everything. Al?
Well, you guys had mentioned that you need to know your audience, but as far as Hollywood goes, I don't think they like their audience. You know,
that's right.
They don't like their audience.
No, they hold us in contempt.
They don't like the original stories. They don't like the original source material. And they're pushing an agenda. I
don't know if they're pushing an agenda fully. I mean, I'm sure some are. I'm sure some are, but I'm also sure that they're trying to get a different audience to be attracted as well, right? I learned in life, people can have, in my experience, right? You know, I'll quote it, my experience as a rabbi, right? People can have a dual intention. They don't have to have one only intention, right? You can have a dual intention. You can say, oh, I'm doing this, but oh, great, I can end up having this and this happening as well. Right. So listen, I think we're going to close out this but I want to can we do this to be continued? Is it possible? Are you guys we're interested? Yeah, because there's a lot to talk about in this industry. And there's a lot that we can develop as a brand new industry. We don't need to be, like you said, if these big companies have the agendas of their own, we can create a collaborative industry of our own, like a collaborative group of our own and community of our own to develop our own projects and make them as movies or film as well. I mean, don't forget Ishook Productions. So I want to call out, first of all, everybody get to the QR code for Sherlock. Do not forget to get to the store, Nexus Comic Store. I put the sleeve.
That's a
yeah, I'm sorry. It is the easiest one to get to. The easiest one to get to the store. Next is Mr. Al Nickerson's what do you call it? The Sword of Eden, Volume 2. Right here is the QR code, goes to his store here, and here's the link to the top right here. Sword of Eden on the top right there, guys. Please support our new friends, Mr. Mike Barron and Al Nickerson. And don't forget, guys, we also have our comic Indiegogo running. It's probably going to continue. Support our fundraise, Super Black. And we have actually, where's the other Super Black? Okay, support here in the left corner as well. Here's our support. And we just released our Kindle version of Super Black. And hopefully by tomorrow, we'll have our print-on-demand version available on KDP, which is Amazon, which we'll share on our social media channels. Please, I ask everybody, do not forget to go below on our YouTube descriptions and all our other social media descriptions. Look up Mr. Barron, look up Mr. Nickerson, look up us, look up Ben, and the great things that we're saying, the stories that are out there. I think with stories, we create some sort of escapism for readers. You know, they have difficult times in life, and a comic can just, ease a person's mind for a minute. And that's the beauty of comics. That's the beauty of the new worlds that we're presenting to all our readers and our customers. May God bless everybody, and God bless America.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you all.